Who wants homemade cookies? I don't know anyone who would turn down the offer for fresh homemade cookies. For the past 2 to 3 years, I have been working and have concocted what I believe to be the best snickerdoodle recipe ever. Although I am not a professional chef, for the past 20 years I have been cooking and baking, primarily baked goods such as cookies, pies, and desserts. I'm always on the lookout for a new recipe to add to my collection, so I decided to share my personal recipe with you. I will cover the ingredients necessary, mixing and traying the cookie dough, to baking and cooling the cookies. I'll also share some tips and insights that I have discovered along my way, which have been confirmed and proven by professionals, which is always nice. The ingredients. You will need a half cup of butter, which is 1 stick, half a cup of shortening, 1½ cups of sugar, 2 3/4 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar, a teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You will also need to make a mixture of cinnamon and sugar. My ratio is 1 cup of sugar to about 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And then you just mix it together well to get a nice even distribution. And that is not part of the sugar that is necessary for the cookie dough. You may ask why I'm using butter and shortening together. And Alton Brown from Good Eats from the Food Network says, shortening melts at a higher temperature than butter, so it remains a solid longer, giving the batter time to rise and set before it spreads. You can substitute the shortening for all butter, but when you do so, the cookie will melt a little bit faster, the cookie dough will melt a little faster, so it'll thin out and be a little bit crisper. Linda Stradley from whatscookingamerica.net also recommends that all the ingredients be at room temperature when you make your cookie. I happen to agree with her on that one also. Now, mixing the dough. You'll put the ½ cup of butter and the ½ cup of shortening into your mixer and let it mix for about 20 to 30 seconds. This will start to mix the two together, and then you'll add your 1½ cups of white sugar. Alton Brown says, by working butter together with the sugar, the tiny sharp sugar crystals actually cut into the butter, creating very, very small bubbles. And these bubbles make it easier for other ingredients to incorporate into the batter. As though the butter is creaming and with the sugar, you'll want to turn on your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you who live in higher altitudes, which is above 3,000 feet, you want to increase that heat to about 425. Due to the altitude, you need a little bit hotter heat to cook to the same doneness of cooking. As soon as the butter and sugar have been creamed, then you'll add in the eggs, one at a time, until each one is incorporated, and then add in the next. After the eggs have been incorporated, you'll add in at one time, or each one, cream of tartar, the baking soda, and the salt. Also let those mix in about 20 to 30 seconds so it's fully incorporated and distributed. Lastly, you'll add the flour. Add in 1 cup at a time. If you add all 2 3/4 cup at one time and then turn on the mixer, you'll have this great white cloud. And then the cookies will not come out the same consistency. After the dough has been mixed, it'll look a little sticky. It'll cling to the batter or to the paddle or to the mixers that you're using, and that's the perfect consistency. It needs to be a little sticky. After it's done mixing, you'll roll the balls into what it looks like about a ping pong ball size. They'll also weigh about 1 ounce in weight. And Linda Larson from About.com, in her article of the top 10 tips for making the best cookies, figures for about a medium-sized cookie, 1 ounce in weight makes about the best sized cookie. After rolling the dough into the ball, you'll put it into your sugar and cinnamon mixture and roll it around until it is fully coated in that mixture. After placing it on your tray or your baking sheet, you'll take an ordinary glass cup with a flat bottom. And you'll take this and you'll gently push down on the dough until it is flattened out. On this particular cup, once I see the dough has come to about the size of this circle, I know that's about the right thickness for the size of cookie that I want. Irma Rombauer and Marion Becker from the Joy of Cooking cookbook, along with the Dean brothers, Jamie and Bobby, from a segment on ABC called Chef's Table, all four of them agree that using a sugar or using a glass cup to flatten down the cookies give the best results. Now after the oven has warmed up to 400 degrees or 425 for the high altitude, go ahead and put those cookies in for about 6 to 8 minutes. Normal cooking time for cookies is about 10 minutes, sometimes up to 12 minutes. But I like my cookies a little bit softer and moister, so I like to take them out a little bit early, so that's why I recommend 6 to 8 minutes. At the 6-minute mark, you always want to check and make sure that the cookies aren't browning too fast. Alton Brown from Good Eats also recommends to check the cookies at the minimum baking time to make sure that if your oven cooks faster in the back or cooks faster in the front, that you're able to rotate the pan so that there's a more even baking happening. After you have baked the cookies, you want to go ahead and bring them out. Always remember to use a hot pad when removing your cookies. Let the cookies sit for about 20 to 30 seconds on the tray. That way it gives them a little bit of time to firm up with the cold air outside of the oven. Once they've been out for about 20 to 30 seconds, you're going to go ahead and just give a slight little nudge underneath the cookie, and most of the time they'll pop right off. And then you can move it to a cooling rack. And the reason why we want to take them off the baking sheet is so that they cool and will stop baking. If we leave them to cool on the baking sheet, it'll let them cook a little bit longer, and you'll get a crisper cookie as opposed to one a little bit tender and moist. Now you can enjoy the cookies warm like my wife does. I prefer to let my cookies cool down and then enjoy them with a nice cup of milk, either by dunking or by eating and then drinking the milk. As one of my friends always said, life is short, eat dessert first. No one will be able to resist these cookies as you take them out of the oven. Write down this recipe, and then you too will have a killer snickerdoodle cookie recipe. And enjoy.